What up? Welcome to the podcast, Shaw. It's been a while since we've actually hung out. It's been a while since I've actually done a podcast episode because life gets hectic and then you try to do things. And then all of a sudden, it's been 2 months since you do an episode. And now I'm back trying to make it happen again. So hopefully, we got a couple good things coming and good conversations. The funniest thing about our friendship is that we met in the most unlikely of circumstance. Like it's just
It's
not a
crazy.
likely. Yeah,
It was
we met
crazy.
in a class room at York University. Found out that we both have connections to Massachusetts. Found out that you actually got your car fixed from my cousin in Massachusetts
Mm-hmm.
before you drove to Toronto to go to York University.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up meeting a year later.
Yep. Absolutely ridiculous. I remember giving you pieces of information, but not trying to give you too much,
Yeah.
trying to see kind of like I don't want to weird him out, but I'm genuinely curious. Does this guy know this guy? And as we got closer, it was uncanny. I was like, this is
Like
so weird, man. Like,
it's like, wait, this is his name? This is where he
yeah,
lives? Yo, that's my cousin.
yeah. It's like, wait, blue car, convertible? Yeah, yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
nuts.
the crazy part of it is like we hung out more in Toronto than we do here. Because we only
Yeah.
hung out like a handful of times here. We
Yeah.
actually hung out more when you were in Mass and I was in Toronto.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
now we live maybe 40 minutes apart, and I haven't
Not
seen you
even.
in like 2, 3 years.
Oh, it's been longer than that, but I think it's been at least at least 3 years, maybe four.
Yeah.
It's been a long
No, no,
time.
not four. Three. Three.
Three? Are you sure?
Three.
Okay, so okay, three
Three.
sounds about right then. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Concept of time these days is a little.
Right. Don't know
It's
what
it's
what's
it's
up and
foggy.
down.
It's foggy.
What have
Yeah,
you been up
no,
to, man? What's been going on with you?
nothing, man. I've been working. I've been grinding, trying to get things situated at work. I have a pretty dynamic role at work, so things do change. Except for the beard, just keeps getting longer. So
Mhm.
that is
I shaved. I'm clean shaven now. That's my thing.
you kind of have to be. You kind of have to be because of the field that you're in. You kind of have to be. I'm all back end, so I work all kind of like operations and kind of stuff like that. So I'm not really front of house, or I'm not really meeting client. I am, but I'm not meeting clients like face to face on the regular. Uh,
Not as often as I am.
yeah, I'm not really doing that on the regular. So I am. I'm doing a lot of like back end work. So because of that, I can have this kind of craziness going on right now. Um,
Yeah. You are
but yeah,
one of my few friends who are like a car friend.
yeah,
I don't have many car friends, but not a lot of people know that I do have like an interest in cars.
hmm
And you have a very interesting story about your car
yeah. I
that
mean,
it's so interesting because you went through an entire like find the car, went out, got it, spent time with it, did work to it. I'm not gonna tell it because I'm not gonna do it justice, but like you got to tell the story.
it's. I mean, where do I begin? It's a pretty. It's, we'll keep it kind of simple, but basically, I was always into cars. I always drew cars. I was like drew them as a child, and just so happened that car caught my eye. I was walking home from school, actually in Toronto, in North York. I was walking home up the up a long, very long hill, very steep hill, I should say. Um, and this very nice gentleman was always like washing the car, and I could tell it was brand new.
Mm,
And one day, like, you know just mustered up the courage to be like, hey, can I like look at your car? Like, I really like it. And he was like, yeah, man, take a look. Yeah, you can sit in it, whatever. I was like, yo, random stranger, but like that's kind of like how things go. And the bug hit. I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm gonna own this thing. I'm gonna own this thing, like no matter what. Eventually, like it'll happen. It ended up taking about 6 years after that point, but I was 11, maybe 12 at the time. So yeah, I got Allison at 20. Yeah, that sounds about right, about 20. Um, yeah, so basically finding the car. So I actually found the car at York.
mm,
I was I was in a gen ed like poli sci or like business law class. I don't remember. I wasn't really paying attention. I was in a lecture. I just sold the car that your cousin was working on, that had worked on for me back in Boston.
Hmm.
I had just sold it to a Army Ranger, and it was getting shipped out to, I think, North Dakota or something like that. So I was working out I was working out those kinks. I remember actually getting a phone call from my mother outside of Schulich, and she was like, "Hey, there's a shipping company outside. Is it cool if we give him the keys?" And I was like, "Yes, the man paid for shipping. Give him the keys.
Hmm.
That's his car." And then that's when it hit me. I was like, "Oh, damn, I don't have a car anymore." And, being someone that, has like worked towards like having a vehicle is like almost like an extension of like your personality. It's
Hmm.
almost like an identifying factor of like who you are. When like if you get into like the vortex deeply, and it's bad. I think it's like psychological warfare. It really is. But anyway, I was in a lecture, wasn't really paying attention. I was cruising through some forums. I saw a car posted,
Hmm.
met some of my criteria. I'm very picky. Met some of my criteria. I'm very picky with everything, and you probably,
Yeah.
I think Richard knows this, but um, it met some of my criteria. I threw him a low ball offer. The guy took it. I was the first one to put an offer on the car. The car had been listed for maybe 20 minutes tops. So, and it was like midday, so like no one had really like seen it.
Hmm.
The guy took my
He
offer.
must have been looking to move it if
Yeah.
he took a low ball offer.
Yeah, so I was kind of shocked because I was like, "Oh damn." Like I was like, my goal was like so I made every c- I haven't sold a lot of cars. Like buy cars to keep them, which is like kind of bad. And more on that later, but basically what had happened was I already had the money like ready to go. Like my goal was whatever money I had from the prior car, I
Hmm.
would, and just for story's sake, that was a 1999 BMW M3. So I had made money on that car, so to speak. I'd probably made a couple grand in profit on that car. So, and they were on the up and up. So I made some money on that. My idea was to save up for about a year. I was not living at home, so I didn't really need a car.
Yeah.
As you know, in Toronto, we didn't really, most of the
Yeah.
time, the
You
car
don't
wasn't
need a
really
car.
used. You don't
Yeah.
really need one. Like as
Not to
much
do.
as
It's really a luxury to
it
have a
is.
car in Toronto because you can literally go through your day to day and use public transit quite efficiently, which is very different from here because here, like if you live in unless you live in Boston,
Boston proper, yeah.
yeah, you need a car to get things done because you can't really rely on the public transit here the same way that you can rely on the public transit in Toronto. So it's very different.
And that's 100% true. Like Boston's got, I think, the oldest like public transit system in
And
North
they've never
America.
changed it. Like
And,
they've
and, and
never updated it.
honestly, like they just use the history. Like they literally just use the history like trump card. Like, hey, like it's history. We can't change it, and we're not gonna, we're
Yeah.
not gonna change streets. We're not gonna make things more easy for people. We're just gonna keep it the kind of way that it is because that's how it was, and we're not gonna move and change with the times. Toronto, following New York's path, it's a grid system. It makes sense. Like if you're on one block, if you walk down maybe one or two other blocks, there's going to be a station there. Like
Yeah.
it's just common sense. It makes sense. New York is like that too. That's why so many people walk around there. And that's why you and I used to walk around all the time in Toronto. It was very
Yeah. You
easy.
can't I mean, yeah, you can walk around downtown Boston here, but it's
Again,
very
you have to be in Boston proper. You have to be in
if
Boston proper to
yeah.
do that. Like you're like
Yeah.
yeah, you're not gonna walk from like Southie to like, Prudential. You're not gonna do that.
No,
It doesn't
that's
make
not
any
gonna happen.
no, I
But
mean
the
you can run it, but if you
and you know
want.
what? And even when I moved here and once I got used to using the MBTA, I started to think back to all the times that I complained about
Mm-hmm.
the TTC, like
Mm-hmm.
just thinking about, man, this thing sucks. There's always delays.
Man, I mean, you never really appreciate something until it's gone, and that's kind of like
Absolutely.
that's huge with like cars too, and like that's one of the reasons why I don't sell cars is because the only car I ever sold, all the other cars that I've ever had, I've actually traded in or
Mhm.
misfortune has come across them in ways that are not related to me, but I have only sold one car technically, and that was that car, and I actually still regret getting rid of that car, but you know talking about like the TTC, we used to rag on TTC all the time. All these buses are never on time. We'd be
Yeah.
waiting for, the 196A, 196B, 196 Express, whatever, out in the cold. It's like, 2 degrees outside, or like in
Yeah.
Canada, because it's the metric system. It's like -30 or whatever with wind chill. And, we're waiting for the bus. We're like, this sucks. But, looking back on it right now, the stations were always clean.
Yeah.
The stations were always clean. The trains were all brand new. They're Bombardier trains, like brand new. It was a plane company, like making
Yeah.
trains, like absolutely crazy. And actually, Bombardier started making some of the Green Line trains. If you
Recently.
didn't know,
Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
that. I've
recently.
seen that.
So like they are expanding, which is awesome. It's nice to see a Canadian company getting some exposure internationally. But yeah, I mean, Boston, man, it's like, I get it. I get the history, but it doesn't make any sense. Like,
Yeah.
it's
You you
dirty,
you,
it's
you
old,
really
it doesn't.
don't know. You really
Yeah,
don't know what you have until it's gone, man. Because I
yeah.
think about it all the time. And for anybody listening that's in Toronto, it's like, I know you guys complain about the
Oh
TTC. I
yeah.
was there with you. I was
Oh
doing
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
I was,
Why is there an extension from like Bayview to like whatever? Like this is so stupid. And it's like, bro,
why
like
is this shut down?
it's
Well,
like that train shows up like every 6 minutes. Calm down. Like it shows up every 6 minutes and it's like 4 stops. Relax.
well,
Like,
here's a big part of it is that when they have TTC shutdowns,
mhm.
like between station to station, they actually have a very comprehensive system that works, that doesn't necessarily make you feel as though you're missing out too much.
Yeah.
Whereas here, if you have like 4 or 5 stops on the orange line that is shut down, that could ruin your day.
Richard,
A hundred
I'm just
percent.
gonna say one thing. I'm just gonna say one thing. Like all of the stations like at you know that encompass the TTC, mostly all of them, they all have like up-to-date TV, they have news, they have like station to station information, where there's traffic.
Wi-Fi. They
Yeah,
have Wi-Fi.
they have Wi-Fi. Like New York just figured that out. Like Toronto figured it out before them. Like we're talking almost 5 years ago now. So it's like
Yeah.
I can only imagine how much better it's gotten in the time, because
It's
obviously
nice.
anytime.
It's gotten better. They put a lot of money into to
Well, they know, because the thing is, like, I've done both. Like, I mean, you're right. Having a car in Toronto is a luxury. I've had both cars in Toronto, the 99 M3 and the car we're talking about today.
yeah.
I've had
It's
both.
nice to have. It's because you can it's just so much more convenient to do things with a car if you
Yeah.
live and this is a big portion of it, because when we say Toronto, we're not just talking about
No,
downtown,
no.
right? The difference,
Even though I did live in downtown, I was always out of downtown because my
yeah,
school was 40 minutes away by train.
like you can live in most parts of Toronto and live without a vehicle and
Yeah.
still be able to function at a very high level. Whereas here, unless you live fairly close to a train station, you're screwed.
Yeah,
You're
like literally you need a car. You will
a
need
hundred
one
percent.
here. And the thing is, I mean, that's one of the things about America. Like the infrastructure is designed around you kind of owning a car.
Mhm.
It's not really like, New York is kind of the exception to that. New York, Chicago, San Francisco starting to get a little bit better with the BART, but most like LA, you can't get around LA relying on public transportation. What are you doing? You're never gonna get anywhere on time. Like,
Mhm.
even with a car, you're not going to get anywhere on time, but at least you have control of that. Like, at least you can leave like 3 hours early and get there. Like, you can't I mean, I guess you could do that with the LA transit system, but you probably have to leave like 6 hours early.
I have no
Um,
clue. Never been.
yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. Literally from about 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. a mess, and then from 3:30 p.m. to about 7 p.m. absolute, like it's bad. It's so bad. Um, it's one of those places where like everyone thinks that they want to live, but they
Mhm.
visit it like once and they're like, wow, like really would not want to live here. Like it's not fun. But Toronto is kind of similar to that. Like, my commute, if I were to drive my car
Mhm.
from, I lived at Bay and Bloor at the time. That's where I first had Allison, which is a
Were you
2004
parking
M3.
inside or outside?
I was parking inside. I had an underground parking spot in my
Uh,
condo that me and Anthony were living in. So more on that too. There's a reason why I had to move out of there. But yeah, I mean, if I drove that car in, which it wasn't often, it was really a treat for me. If I had like if I had like a low amount of classes that day, or maybe had a test or something like that,
Hmm.
I would do it that way. But it would still take like an hour, like
Yeah.
hour and 15 and change. Like even taking back roads, like I would take Glore all the way down, and then I would take like
Yeah.
Spadina up, and it still take forever because I know that the 401's screwed, and 401 to 400 is nuts. So it's like there's no point in even doing that. Toronto's the only city in the world where you have 8 lanes of highway each way, and there's still traffic.
It's
It's
10.
still it's is it 10?
Yeah, it's 10.
Oh, because express lane. I forgot the
Yeah.
express lane.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's
Okay,
like 20 lanes in total
like
of
I don't.
traffic.
I'm just gonna say this right now. Like some
It's
sometimes
nonsense.
it's ridiculous because like sometimes like you tell people to like you always wonder like now that like people are you'll see people like running around on the highway and stuff like protesting and whatnot. That couldn't fly in Toronto. Like it's 20 lanes wide. Like how many people do you plan on like using to shut down to block the highway? I mean, in Boston we had that happen right before the tunnel. I mean, it was like 6 people.
I
Um,
think the funniest thing that I was thinking about is when I first got here and people were telling me how, how there's bad traffic on 93. And I'm like, no, man, we're moving.
yeah.
We're moving.
Yeah,
This is,
and that's literally what LA people say about moving to Boston. It's like, but you're moving though. Like
yeah,
you're
like in
actually
Toronto, you will
moving.
come to a complete halt
And
on the
that's what
401.
and there's a reason why I stopped driving into school or schedule. I literally had to schedule my classes around me driving my car. Like this is I think the thing that me and Richard are like we've been talking about doing something like this for a bit, and it's not about like the specifics of the car. It's literally about the person behind the car,
Yeah.
and like what kind of an insane person, crazy person, like decides to kind of like put themselves through this. I'll
Well,
tell
at the
you,
end of the day, it's like a car is a car and it's meant to be driven,
it's a
and
machine. It's an
it's a machine.
inanimate object, and humans provide the animation. Well, humans and like Shell Gas. Nope. Little plug right there. Hook it
Yeah,
up.
they're not sponsoring, so
Well, I wish.
maybe
Um,
later.
yeah,
Yeah, they're like a car is a car. It's meant to be driven, and you structure your life based around the car that you have. Um, or and vice versa. So
yeah,
if that's why that's why there's a market for minivans. I think minivans are absolutely the worst thing that you could possibly own. They
yeah.
look terrible, but there is a market for them, and it's crazy that
The utility of them is unparalleled. I mean, you can use them as a work truck. You can use them as a family vehicle. You can do
yeah,
both. I mean, we saw kind of the rise and fall of minivans. Now the big craze is big SUVs.
yeah,
Um,
like
and
400 horsepower SUVs doesn't
well,
make any
yeah,
sense.
I mean that's one specific company that literally just designs all of their cars within the same bracket of people, and there's just always that one dude that's like passed out drunk in the corner, and he's basically like, anytime there's a new car release, it's like, but will that motor fit? That's the only question he asks. He or she, or
Them.
they, them. So that's the
But
only
it's
question that
it's
they
yeah,
ask.
you buy, I mean, and that's a very big thing about being a car owner is that what are you buying this car for? What kind of lifestyle do you plan on living with this car? Right?
Yeah, and you live your life around that, and like Rashard actually knows this like kind of like firsthand because um like I like I said, I've always been into cars, but it wasn't until I actually owned cars when I realized like, damn, this is like crazy. Like this is nuts. Like there are people that are more into cars than I am. And honestly, to be very honest with you, that's kind of scary. That's
Hmm.
that's kind of scary because it's like, what are you missing that you have to be so into inanimate objects? You know what I mean? Like is it like, do you get a thrill from like driving? Is that like
Well,
what pushes
yeah,
you?
and no
Yeah,
matter what you do, any kind of extremist version of it
yeah,
is kind of like concerning. Like if you're into cars, that's cool. But if you're an extreme
yeah.
into cars, it's like, what else do you do with your life then?
Exactly. And like that was like, and that's an issue with like a lot of car people is like the thing about cars is like, anybody can say I like cars, anybody can say that.
Hmm.
Literally anybody could say that, right? But a person that's a car enthusiast, we'll call them, will start asking deeper questions. What kind of cars? Why?
Hmm.
What color cars? What color interior cars? Do you like leather? Do you like sway? Just kind of feeling it out, what kind of a person, like almost attributing this person's taste in cars to their actual personality. It's literally mind blowing. It's actually
Mm,
crazy. Like these are crazy people. I'm telling you right now, I've had the whole full circle kind of coming around, and I've
mm,
realized they're just insane. Like these
yeah.
people are crazy,
What's the
but they're also
biggest
like my friends.
what's the biggest mistake you think you ever made car wise?
Getting into them.
Okay, yeah.
I
But
guess the biggest mistake would be, not listening to some kind of like, we'll call them like veterans that have like been building cars for a long time. One of my friends, his name is Randy. He's an engineer out in Toronto actually,
yeah.
and I had a crisis. I had like an internal crisis, and I was like, okay, I really want that car that I used to walk by and see all the
Mm,
time. And the thing is, when I bought my 99, I couldn't afford, the later model or the car that I have now. I couldn't afford it because they were still coming down in price. So they're actually on the decline, but I still couldn't afford them. Um, so I was like, okay, I'll get something in the meantime to kind of hold me over.
mm,
Now, that car that I had was a very unique example. And this person, Randy, my friend, was like, listen, the grass isn't greener on the other side. Just because you have a more expensive car doesn't mean you're going to be more happy, doesn't mean it's going to run better, doesn't mean any of that stuff. So he's like, your car might need some work, but that's easy. That's the easy part. Like doing the work is not hard. You can schedule that and figure that out and work out the financials, but replacing it with something completely brand new is going to turn your world upside down. And he was 100% correct. It
yeah.
didn't happen overnight. It happened through a span of many, many years. I've had this car for almost 10 years. So I can tell you I've gone through quite a bit to get it to where it's at right now. So yeah, I think the biggest thing was, not listening to people that have been in the industry for a while, not kind of using like just having like kind of like a blissful ignorance about it. Like it's not going to affect me. Like how can an inanimate object affect my bank account? No way.
Yeah. Well, I think you made a very good point there, which was no matter what the price of the vehicle, it's not guaranteed to make you happy. Like there's this weird, we have a belief in our life that, well, if I, have a good job and I make good money and I go out and I spend, $80,000 on a car, well, spending $80,000 on a car should make me happy. It should give me some sort of status and it should do this and do that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that,
Well, like
right?
it's difficult to kind of like classify because like some car people are literally like they have the itch, they have the bug, meaning that the only thing that interests them about vehicles is just getting into a newer vehicle or getting
Mm,
into a more expensive car, and their version of happiness is either being perceived at as a person who has the money to flex that,
yeah.
to actually do it, or keeping up with their friend circle, because the thing is the car community is very clicky. It's very clicky, even amongst the same kinds of cars. It's very clicky. Like
Yeah.
I know there's a group in Boston, and I'm not really like a part of them. And there's a group in New York, and I know people there, but I'm not a part of them. LA's got a huge group. Hell, even Hawaii's got a group. So it's like, I mean, we're just talking about M3s. We're not talking about anything else. And it's crazy. Like it's literally like these are crazy people. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep mentioning that because I'm just like the more I talk about it, the more I realize it's like I've literally been hanging out with absolute insane people. Um,
Yeah, it's because you have like because there's people who only own M3s and they're only gonna hang out with people who own M3s.
yeah, and it's just like it's so crazy because it's like I was like, listen, like like I ended up like bringing it up once, actually at a car meet, in Woodbridge, Ontario. I had showed up to the meet late, which is typical. I'm kind of late at everything. They had a parking spot saved for me for the car because they knew I was coming. So I was like, okay, cool. So this is like the group, like the BMW club that like goes there. So I was like, cool, whatever. So I parked my car and then I rolled up my windows and then I walked away. And they're like, hey, you're not gonna say hi to anybody? Like what? Like, we're gonna hang out, we're gonna take some photos. I'm like, yeah, you guys can do that. I'm gonna go look at some other cars here. There's like 300 freaking cars here. Like, I'm gonna go look at some other cars. Like, I don't want people to leave and then I won't be able to see them. And they got all
Yeah.
upset. They're like, hey, like, like we saved you a spot, like all this kind of stuff. Like, you should roll with us and all this kind of. I'm like, bro, like, is this Sons of Anarchy? Like, what is this shit? Like, like, what are you doing? Like, it's like, you thanks for saving me the spot, but you didn't like save my life or something like that. I don't owe you a debt Like, I'll buy you a sandwich later. How about that? Or a slice
for
of
this parking
pizza.
spot.
Yeah. But it's like, I'm here to look at the other 300 cars that are here. If I wanted to look at my own car, I wouldn't even need to turn it on. I could just look at it.
Yeah.
So like that's another big thing. Like, visual people that are into it for the visuals. Like, some
Mhm.
people just do cars to look at them. They think they appreciate it as art. I think you're
Yeah.
kind of on that kind of
That's more
bandwagon
my,
too.
yeah, that's what my thing is as far as cars go. I'm more into the visual aspect of what they look like, what they're like to drive. Like, I don't need to own a vehicle that's going to go, you
Like
know,
300 miles per hour.
yeah, I
It's
don't
not
need
it's not
that.
important. I mean, you can't
Not
do that
important.
anyway.
I
So
can't, yeah.
yeah, but here's the thing, like like, understand this, what you just said, right? Like, that's the crazy part. Like, it's an inanimate object. We as humans create these machines to take us to and from
Point A to
wherever we
point
want,
B.
point A to point B, and we have an entire culture or subculture of multiple subcultures of people that are just into cars as a hobby on different spectrums, whether it be art, whether it be photography, whether it be engine noise, whatever, whether it be drag racing,
Yeah.
track drive, whatever. There's so many ways to do it, which was the initial appeal for me. I was like, okay, I can like get into this kind of stuff and like
Hmm.
try that out. If I don't like that, I can get into this kind of stuff. And ultimately, after, we're talking almost 15 years of just straight up cars, like just like very like focused into cars, maybe the last 10, maybe the last 12 years being hyper focused almost,
Hmm.
you know, like looking out from within, I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
I think about it too. Cause like,
Why?
even for me, I look at cars and I think to myself, okay, it doesn't matter to me how much the car costs.
No.
It matters to me, you know, what kind of, like, why am I buying this thing?
Hmm.
Right. So if, people will say, well, I want to get a brand new Mercedes, right? And I'll be like, or you can get a 1994 Mercedes for like $8,000.
Yeah.
And that thing will be as cool as you could, like, that'll be cool as shit.
It's funny. Like, one of the things that I kind of learned in college is like how to read people, like body language and stuff like that. Like, I didn't take a class per se on that, but it was like something that I was like reading on, like in my spare time, when I wasn't looking up car parts. Honestly, like, I'm just being honest. Like, that's like something that like I was actually interested in. Like, I had a lot of friends that were like psych majors, and they would like always like fill my head with like, hey, like, you could tell if someone's going to be a sociopath by how they cut pancakes. And actually turned out like there are studies behind that, like not pancakes in particular, but like how people
I
hold
hope not.
cutlery. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, there's a study for almost everything at this point. But anyway, what I want to say is, confidence, you can see when someone is confident with their vehicle. Like, I'll be like, there is no joke. Like, Bill Gates drives like a 98 Volvo station wagon. The
Yeah.
man is one of the richest people on the planet. He can buy whatever car he wants by the drop of a hat. Doesn't care.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Cash buy, like literally could pay for shipping to have it there today on a plane from like Dubai. Doesn't matter. He could do it, right? He could do it, and he could like literally have his own gas pump at his house. Like, literally does not matter. The man could do it. He doesn't do it. Why? Because he doesn't give a shit. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, he can drive. He knows that a car is just a utility object to get him from point A to point B. Another example, Mark Zuckerberg, guy that owns Facebook and Instagram and like a bunch of other things. Dude drives a 2010 GTI. Nothing wrong with the 2010 GTI.
Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, that's a cool car.
That's a great car. I believe it's a manual. I don't know, but I believe it's a manual. The man's driving around Palo Alto in a little GTI, a
Yeah.
little small, unassuming vehicle, and he's one of the richest people on the planet. Also, both these people who don't give a shit about cars are also Harvard dropouts. What are the odds? But I mean, that's the thing. It's like confidence. You can see it, like, and we would see it all the time at car meets. Like, I'm pretty sure I was the only one that, maybe one of the few people that could like pick up on that, because this is something that I was interested in. But you could tell that when someone was like trying to like earn your respect or something like that, like, please look at my car and like let me know what you think. Like,
Yeah.
almost like, like
Those
ask.
words of affirmation, like,
Exactly. Like, they
validate me,
need it. They
please.
need it. And I'm just kind
Yeah.
of like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like, yeah, like, whatever. But it's like, it's like, I'm kind of the same way, like, like not needing it. Like, I'm as kind of like meh about it when people ask for
Mhm.
my opinion. And then when I also receive feedback on my own car, like,
Yeah.
it's literally like, I don't care. I'm building it for me. If you don't like it, there's another one right next to it. You can go pick on that one. I don't care. Like, I'm not going to change for, whatever you think is right or wrong. However, I do follow reviews and stuff like that. So I do try to
Yeah.
make logical choices. But, as you mentioned, you could be confident in an $80,000 Mercedes, no problem, but you could be equally as confident in an $8,000 Mercedes from like 1994. No,
Yeah.
no difference. No
There's no
difference to me.
difference. They're both going to do the exact same thing. Car's a car.
Car is a car, 100%. Car is a
Yeah.
car. Vin don't lie. Car is a car. This
Yeah.
car is black. This car is blue. There's really no difference
There's
to them.
no difference
Like,
between
if we're gonna be
what
very
they
gray,
do.
if we're gonna be very black and white about that, that's literally what it comes down to.
Yeah, you find the one that works for you in the lifestyle that you want to live. Don't get it for anybody else, right? Because at the end of the day, people may see you driving the car, but you're the one that still has to drive it every day. You're the one that has to pay for gas, pay for
Mhm.
insurance, maintain it. Like you have to
And
do all these things, and you have to feel happy doing it.
we see this happen all the time when I say we, I mean, like, me and my friends talk about this all the time, like amongst the car people, car community, I should say. And this is all like Facebook stuff, but it's a lot of like, people want that affirmation. They want that, like, they want that respect or approval. So they will
Mm,
buy cars just to do that. Like, they will literally stretch themselves to the limits to buy a car, to
like
hang out with
financially.
people. Like, financially, yeah. Like, I'm telling you, they're crazy people. Like, being into cars is almost worse than being into drugs, because you're making these decisions sober. You are doing these
you
things
are
sober.
you are sober and you are deciding to spend money on
Like when you here's the thing, like when you, like, there's like a meme about this, and it's been out for years, but it's so true, and it can be applied to almost anything. But like, me as a car person at, like, TJ Maxx, looking at a $20 pair of jeans, do I need these? And then me looking at $2,000 sets of wheels, I need these, PayPal ready. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
why? Why? And the thing is, you're completely sober when you're making these decisions. So it is like, literally, that's why I keep mentioning crazy people. That should be the title of this damn, like, video. Like, literally crazy people. Car people are nuts. Like, just, it's not for flexing. It's not for any of that. It's like, there's like a subconscious kind of like control that this inanimate object has over people, and I'm a victim of that too. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna lie, like, it's been crazy. The last couple of months have been nuts in this car.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well,
I
you have
think
an interesting story with that car too, because like, didn't you totaled it, right?
I didn't total it. So what happened was that car, I had used it heavily in the summer, and I was on some tires that were very close to being done. I took the car out for its essentially last run for the season, and I was at work on a weekend, and I was coming back, and I just so happened to be caught in a freak sleet storm
Mhm.
on summer tires. So the temperatures outside went from being like 48, 45 degrees, and cold and dry, to 20 degrees, ice and wet,
Oh
like
wait, wait,
downpouring.
hold on. Was that Celsius or Fahrenheit? What just happened there?
US,
That awkward pause where we can't convert it on time.
the US version, because this happened in America.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, but I
Yeah,
get it. I get it. So that's about like you went from like 8 degrees down to like -4
pretty much, yeah. And
or
it's
-5, something like that.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, it wasn't temperature was part of it for sure, because summer tires don't work under about 30 degrees, or, like, whatever 30 degrees, like whatever 30 degrees
It's like
conversion is.
-1. I think
Yeah,
32 is
-1.
0.
Yeah, 32 is 0. Yeah, so yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, it's like -1. So they don't work under that temperature anyway. But they really don't function under like 50 degrees. Like 50, 60 degrees is like kind of like where like they start to function. So I was already kind of pushing the limit by like driving the car, even in the dry. And because we're in New England, what they say about New England weather: if you don't like it, just wait 15 minutes, it'll change. Unfortunately, I was on the highway and I was going home, and I was like, hey, my exit's right there. Like, my exit's literally the next one. I can make it. I had carried too much speed going over a crest, and the car hydroplaned and did like, I think, I don't, from what I remember, I don't really remember a lot, but it was probably like two or three 360s into, like, so I was in the farthest left lane. There's 3 lanes of traffic. There's 4 lanes of traffic across. I
Mhm.
spun I spun all the way down to the furthest right lane, and no one hit me. Like for that one moment, everyone's brakes worked in the rain, which is nuts. The only person's brakes who didn't work were mine. Because I obviously like tried to brake and the car was like not having it. But because I've, driven aggressively while I was up in Canada, I definitely like spent some time on racetracks with the car and stuff like that. When a car is going to spin like that aggressively, there's nothing you can do to stop it. You just let it spin. You just let it spin, and like you actually want to be as limp as possible, because if you stiffen up, you could hurt yourself. So I was limp, and I was ready for it. I was like, hey, if somebody hits me, or if I hit a guardrail or whatever, if I go, there was actually a wall I missed by about 20 feet. It was a cement wall, and it was a pretty long wall too. So like I had spun for almost about 200 feet. So, in meters, like, I don't know, 30 meters or something like that. No, I don't know. I don't remember.
No.
1.6. What is it? No, it's
I don't know.
no, never mind. That's something else. I don't remember. It's late. But yeah, I had spun for a bit. The car wasn't totaled. The car actually just, I got really lucky. Nobody hit me, and I didn't hit anybody else. Because of how the car spun multiple times, the force from that unhooked the front bumper, the rear bumper, and I smacked a mile marker sign like sideways, and that created a nice crease on the side of the car. Now, the reason why this is important to bring up, and I actually wasn't going to bring it up just because it's like traumatizing, because that's where it kind of got bad, is when I bought that car, I was sitting at Osgood Hall at York when I made the decision to send over the money to, so I didn't pay for the car online. So what I told him was like, listen, when I found the car at York, like I said, I was in kind of like a blow-off class, not really paying attention, and I found it on a forum in the States. It was in Pittsburgh. I was set to go home, so it was like May or something like that. No, this is like April. This is April of like 2012 or 2013. I don't remember. But I told him, I was like, listen, I'm in school. I'm in a different country. I'm going to be back soon. Can I give you a deposit to hold on to the car? And the guy's like, yeah, send me over like $500 via PayPal. And like, keep it, I'll make it refundable if like anything happens. I was like, oh, cool. This guy's cool. So I was at Osgood Hall. I was studying for a final, and I sent over the money. And then I called my parents and I was like, hey, I know I just sold the car, but I also just bought a car. And they're like, you literally shipped the car last week. I was like, I know. And I was going to save, for a year or two, because I didn't, again, we just mentioned, I don't need a car.
Don't need it.
Don't need it in Toronto. You just don't need it. It's expensive. Gas is not cheap. So I didn't need it, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go with it. And my initial plan was I'd only keep it for a year. Keep it for a year, 2 years tops, sell it. Now, when this act of God, we'll call it, happened, I was left with a choice. What had happened was my dad had taken insurance off the car. So we store the car in the wintertime. I'm obviously not driving in the snow. I had to put winter tires on it. So it gets stored. He didn't tell me that. So I'd taken out the car and I had no insurance. Oof. So nobody hit me. I didn't hit anybody. I didn't damage any public property. So it's crazy. Like, again, it's nuts. Like
that is like, this is an act of God right here.
Like, literally, this was like a test. And the state police officer that came to my assistance, and like, luckily my friend was driving like on the same road. So I called him, was like, yo, like I spun the M3, and he's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm on Route 3, like next to Braintree, where the Best Buy is. He goes, yeah. So like, it's right there where I spun. So he goes, oh, dude, like I was literally getting off my exit. Let me just hop back and I'll help you out. So he came by and he's literally picking up parts off the side of the road. And there was only like 2 or 3 parts to pick up. Like I said, nothing flew off the car. Nothing really broke. So I was really lucky. The stagey that came by goes, I'm going to give you an option. He's like, I have to charge you for a tow because the car was actually facing the wrong way. It was actually facing traffic because it spun. It was facing traffic in a ditch. But it wasn't like a super deep ditch, but it was definitely like a little bit muddy because it was raining. It was raining heavy. But anyway, the state's like, I can't cut you a break on that. You're gonna have to pay for that out of pocket. But I will ask you, do you have insurance on this car? Or he's like, do you want to go through insurance? Actually, he asked me, do you want to go through insurance, or do you want me to not write an accident report? And I was like, do not write an accident report. I'm gonna fix this out of pocket. And he goes, perfect. And that's literally when shit got crazy, because I parked it in my garage and forgot about it for about 3-4 months. I kind of like I let the winter go. I let the winter go, and I was like, I'll figure out what I'm going to do with this car later on. Now, mind you, this car is paid off. A lot of people finance their fun cars. I one of the reasons why I bought this car so quickly after selling my last car is because I paid for it in cash. I didn't
Mhm.
have a finance. I didn't finance. I didn't have anything over my head. So
Yeah.
the only thing I was paying for monthly was insurance. So
Mm.
and gas and like running costs. So which is also very expensive on an old car. At the time, this is a 2004 and this is 2012 or 2013. It's not like a 2-year-old car that's like not going to break. It's
Breaks every
literally,
day.
yeah, like literally it breaks my wallet. That's what BMW stands for. It's not what it actually stands for, but um so yeah, so that's when I got crazy, bro. Like it literally went nuts. Like that's when I was like, okay, I have a choice. I could sell this for scrap and take off all the parts, or I could build it and turn it into like what I really want it to be. And fast forward 7 years, and we're here. I still have
Yeah.
it. It's in the garage. It's pretty much useless at this point for street use. Um, it's I went down a direction I probably shouldn't have gone, which is turning it to more of like a street track focus car. But I
Mhm.
live in New England, so we don't have a lot of tracks.
There's one in, isn't there one in like Vermont? There's one in
No,
Vermont.
no, there's one in New Hampshire. There's one in Western Massachusetts. There's a few in New Hampshire actually. There's one in Western Massachusetts, and there's a few in Connecticut. There are tracks out here, but New England tracks are really old. And it's a weather thing, man. Like the thing is, like having first of all, having a car is a luxury, no matter what kind of car it is. You know,
Yeah,
whether
absolutely.
it's a whether it's a 1988 Civic DX or you
Hey,
know
whether
or
whether the power steering works or not,
it don't matter, man.
it
As
doesn't
long
matter.
as long as you're in the car, I mean, it's a blessing, and then, like that's the thing too. Is like, a lot of car people need to hear that more. It's like, it's not you have something. You know, a lot of people don't have anything. Like,
Yeah,
so it's like you have to kind of like people don't want to take the bus. They have to take the bus. There is that kind of like that happens. That's a real thing, and like that's a really grounding moment. So I was going crazy when I was building this car because I was like, okay, I got to get this part. I got to get this part. I mean, I'm shipping parts in from like, overseas, like building connections, networking with people from like California, Canada, Germany, UK. I'm going out all over the place. I'm like, I'm going to build it. I'm going to like do the best I can to rebuild the car, and, make it my own. Again, 7 years have passed and I'm still modifying the car. At this point, not because of anything other than the fact that I can. Um, and that's kind of like the sad reality of cars like that of cars that you might buy that serve like a dual purpose. Like, yeah, it's my fun car, but I also take it to work.
hmm
And then something happens, and then that car becomes your project car, and that's when it gets crazy because project cars literally have like a subconscious hold over you. Like you can literally just do whatever. Like
yeah.
it's a blank slate. So, and I use that to the best of my ability. I mean, obviously, are there things that could have gone better? Sure, but you know,
What would you say to somebody who is on their way to, like, if you were running into like a 16-year-old kid, right? He just got his first job and he's saving up money to buy his first little car. He's gonna buy like he's gonna buy an E92 335,
yep.
and he's gonna do all this kind of work to it.
I've had this conversation many times. You don't even know. I've had this conversation so many times.
16, 17 years
Oh
old,
yeah,
and
oh yeah.
like,
These kids show up at car meets all the time. They bring all their friends over, and they're always asking questions. And you know, I always look at it this way, where it's like, some people learn better by going through things and like not listening. And I was kind of like on that boat, like like I could have listened to Randy 10 years
mhm,
ago and like taken his advice and like built my 99 M3, kept it a humble car. I was very confident in that car. I had no issues. It wasn't like a confidence thing. Like I felt very
yeah,
happy with it, but it wasn't what got me into cars.
yeah,
That was the problem. It wasn't the right car. And looking back on it right now, I think it was the right car because it did everything right. And they've actually appreciated and valued quite a bit now. So it's like, monetarily, I could say that like, it would have
it's
worked
worth
out.
it. Yeah,
It would have evened out. Whatever money I invested in it, I should say, would have evened out. I would have gotten some of it back, or at least part of it. Um, but yeah, these kids that come by, I always tell them like, listen, you know, you you literally work for the car. Like
Yeah.
the car is your boss, and it's sad to say that, but that's how it is. Like if you're not in a relationship, the car is your spouse. Like
Yeah.
literally, like whatever it
So
needs,
wait, when you are in a relationship, who's the side piece?
the car.
The car's the side piece.
The car is a side piece. It has to be. It has to be. I mean, it just has to be. I have a friend of mine with an M3 with the license plate side piece. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but like that's the thing. It's like it's just nuts how like I mean, like it's the market for it. Like also, it's like it depends on the kind of car too. Like some cars don't mod well. Some cars mod very well. So like it just depends. So like, and that's why I have such a diverse group of friends because like I'm okay with talking to people outside of BMWs. I don't give a shit if you own a BMW. I don't care if you own a Tesla. Like, you're a cool
Cars are
person.
like we said, car's a car.
Red car, blue car, yellow car. Cool. Like,
Yeah.
ultimately that's what it comes down to. And that's how insurance sees them too. There's pieces of metal. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That's why I have a whole thing about like I try not to buy, like if I'm looking for a car, I try to buy a car that's at least 10 years old because I
mhm.
know that'll change the way that the insurance is.
Yep.
Anything newer than that, then I know I'm paying more.
You're just paying more because there's like the parts are still expensive on that car and it's
Yeah.
just tough to. I mean the algorithms that they use are crazy. They factor in a lot of different things into them, so that's why insurance is so like techy now. Like that's why you can get a quote online quickly because as soon as you put your VIN information in, they're just going to pull up all the other cars in the area that are like that, and there's going to
Yeah.
be, oh, what is somebody else paying that's like similar in age and similar in
Well, I guess that's also good for the consumer too, because now you're
yeah,
not dealing with like this mom and pop. Well, that's which sucks for mom and pop insurance companies
they don't exist anymore.
that don't exist anymore. But
Yeah.
this algorithm is going to give you the absolute best price for
hmm
your insurance. Like
yeah, and
they're
then
really,
they have
and
ad.
then you have like different bigger companies that you can bundle your insurance with other
hmm
things to
That's
get
exactly what I was gonna
promotions.
say. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's tough, man. But it's like like getting to kind of like talk to people about like the psyche of cars. It's crazy because it's like some people need it. Some people
hmm
need it. Like some people like their day to days are very monotonous. Like this is like literally what they're living for. And
hmm
I feel bad for them because the thing is like like if you don't have any other hobbies, and we've talked about this, like if you don't have any other hobbies, like what are you doing? Like it's a car,
yeah.
man. It's like the car. Like
But it's liberation, man. Like having a
it
vehicle
is.
it's freedom. It's
Well,
um
that's what I was going to get to next, and that's
yeah,
that's one of the things that set that car apart from me having anything else in Toronto. Is
yeah.
having a car in college is
Stupid.
nice, but it's nice. It's a
Stupid.
luxury. It's a luxury. You
It's
don't
a
need one.
super luxury. You do not need a car
You
while
don't
you're in
need a car in
college.
college, especially
No.
if you're going to college in a big city like a metropolis. Like you don't
Yeah.
need a car. So me
Yeah.
having a car in Toronto is actually kind of cool because now I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So within reason, so I can do whatever I want.
Well, there's
So.
nothing better than when you're just having a bad day and you just like you get
hmm
on the highway and you just fucking go, man. And then next thing you know, you've been driving for 2 hours and you're at least here when you drive for 2 hours, you're in another state. Um,
I would be in Barrie. I would avoid Whitby at all costs and avoid Oshawa because no one wants to go there. But
yeah, the other day I was like, I was pissed off. I was pissed off and I got in and I drove and I took back roads. I took back roads and I just remember like, okay, I'm just gonna drive. I'm gonna see where this takes me. I'm not gonna use my GPS. Just gonna what like windy road type of ordeal. And then I ended up after an hour of driving or 2 hours of driving, I ended up like just north of Billerica.
yeah, and like it's funny you mentioned that. Like a lot of car people that are into cars for like driving and just like to kind of escape and like listen to music or whatever and just cruise around.
Yeah,
They have similar stories like that. Like for me, when I was first getting my license, it was kind of like the only place where I could like really be alone. You know what I mean? Like so
yeah,
I would literally um wake up at like 3 in the morning, or if I couldn't sleep or something like that, I'd just take one of my parents' cars. When I got my license, I'd take one of my parents' cars and I'd literally just drive around the city. I'd like, I'd go, I would go from Medford to Boston and I'd drive around like Mass Ave and then
yeah,
see what's on Mass Ave. And like, I didn't want to see that. So I drove the other way. So I went to, other parts of the town. And the thing is, I did the same thing in Toronto. I actually did more walking in Toronto, because gas prices are so expensive in Canada.
Yeah, they are.
It's crazy. It's especially like the M3 the Allison doesn't do good on gas. Like she's a
But
gas
yeah,
guy.
there's something like, and especially when obviously it's hard to do here without getting a speeding ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when you know 2 o'clock in the morning, you've had a rough day,
No one's around.
no one's around, you get onto the highway, you just let it fly.
I mean, you can do that. I mean,
You
like
can't do it.
you
It's hard.
you can do it.
You
It's just
can't do it.
you gotta know people.
Like you gotta be careful, because like
Yeah.
depending on where you do it, you'll get. I was talking to a state trooper. He's like, yeah, it depends. Like you can get away with it, but it depends on where you're doing it. And
Yeah.
like if you, they're like, if you slow down, like when you see a cop, they'll like kind of back off a little bit. But if you just
Yeah.
keep on going,
I mean, that's just like kind of just being arrogant at that point. Like
yeah.
there's also like, we could also like get into like, if you want like later episodes, like there is like an entire like driving language.
Mm-hmm. I
Like
think that people here drive like absolute tools. Like I hate
oh, it's crazy. It's
I hate
crazy.
oh my God.
So the thing is like, okay, like I'll like I know you have a lot of viewers that like might be in
A lot of
Canada.
viewers, says who?
I don't know. Like you have probably a lot of viewers.
All 20 to 30 people that might see this.
That's fine. 20, 30 people. That's fine. Well, some of them might be in Canada. So I'll just give you like the
Majority.
breakdown. I'll give you the breakdown between, Toronto and Boston. Okay. In Toronto, people might might cut you off. And if they do cut you off, they, might not know that they did that, or they like,
They'll
maybe
apologize.
they'll apologize, but even though they don't mean it, in
Yeah.
Boston, they will cut you off and they won't apologize, and then
Because
they'll
they
yell
mean
at
it.
you. They'll yell at you for actually saying something about it, and they meant that. Like what they said about your family, they actually meant. So,
Dude, I can't I understand why there's a lot of road rage in this state, because
it just doesn't make any sense here,
yeah,
man.
because it's self-perpetuating, because I don't have not a lick of road rage in me. Right. I do not have road rage.
So all of my friends that are into cars that are from here are extreme drivers. Like when I say extreme, like not like extreme sports, like I mean they're crazy. Like these people are nuts. Like that person tailed me. I am going to let them pass me, and then I'm going to do the same to them. Like, you psychopath, what's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
why? Why? What is that going to accomplish? And then it's like, that person's going to move over, and I'm just going to keep on going. It's like, what if that person does the same thing? We're just going to keep, it's a never ending cycle. It's just a never ending cycle of crazy.
Dude, I had one day where I was driving. It's just 2-lane traffic, and the speed limit was like 25, 30 miles an hour. And I'm doing like 35, because there's, this is residential.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like, I'll drive faster on the highway, but when it comes to residential, I like to keep it.
Yeah, you want to
within range. You don't know who's gonna, you never know when like a dog's gonna run into the street or a child's gonna run into the street.
Yep.
So I keep it like super conservative. And this guy behind me is like right on me, and he wants me to speed up, and because I don't speed up, now he's got his high beams on me.
Yeah.
And that's the culture here. That's just like considered acceptable.
There is literally in America, I think it's region to region too, but literally there is a regional driving language that exists. So we have kind of discovered not only a we'll call it a crippling disease within car communities, which is called being into cars, car enthusiasts. It's like, I'm going to call that a disease at this point. And we've discovered a language, an unknown, unwritten language that doesn't really have any words. It's just gestures, and you can use parts of your car to convey feelings and emotions. So app companies, take heed of this. But I mean, it's crazy, man. It's like, it's nuts. It's like, we're talking about an inanimate object. We're not talking about something that, that does things on its own, unless we're talking about like a Tesla or a Fisker or whatever. Like a car is just again, we mentioned it before, point A to point B. It's just a
Yeah.
box, metal box, gets you to point A to point B.
Have you ever, you know what, the one thing that does piss me off here while I'm driving is
Right.
that when I put my indicators on, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get into this lane
Mm-hmm.
and no one's letting me in.
No, they won't. They won't.
Nobody ever lets, like, I'm
No.
literally trying to change lanes and everybody else is just like zooming past me.
See, again, like there is like, so for the longest time, I thought that people in Toronto, because Toronto is like a very multicultural city. There's a lot of people that aren't from Toronto or from
Mhm.
Canada. So a lot of immigrants are there. So for the longest time, I was like, yo, everyone here probably just buys a license. I don't even think they're actually formally taking a test. I just like if you can drive in like Mumbai, you can drive anywhere. You can drive in Hong Kong, you can drive anywhere. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
it's not the driving is not a hard concept to
No.
kind of understand. But there are driving,
Like
there are
the
driving.
etiquette to it.
Yeah, there's behavior. It's like, like I'm not going to talk in a Southern proper accent in Boston at a formal dinner. It doesn't make any sense unless I'm from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's what it comes down to. If I can come up with any kind of analogy on the fly, it's like if you're from Hong Kong, you can't drive like you're living in Hong Kong in like Texas. Doesn't make any sense. There's no traffic in Texas. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing, man? Like you can't like cut people off and stuff like that. There's tons of space. So it's crazy. It's like I think there's more to like just cars than just metal and like modifying them and like making loud noises. There's like so much more to them.
Yeah.
And this is when we talk about Transformers.
More
Um,
than meets the eye, man.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, yo.
But yeah, man, it's such a, owning a vehicle is such a special thing. Getting your license for the first time is such a
great
special
feeling.
thing. Yeah,
Great feeling.
it's a great feeling when you get your learner's permit.
It
And
is
it's an even
literally
better
the first
feeling.
step. It's the first step. I'm like, this is what adulthood feels like. Like this
Yeah.
is, and then you realize the crippling depression of like, oh no, oh no,
Everything costs money.
yeah, everything costs money. It doesn't get any better than this right now. From this moment, it gets worse.
Yeah, it's, every kid who ever gets their learner's permit it's like the most exciting thing. And then when you pass you pass your test and you actually get your license and you get to go out there and you get to, drive for the first time. And especially when you get to drive by yourself for the first time and you're independent. That's when you get the opportunity to really feel free. And it's a
Yes.
special moment because for multiple reasons is that there's a lot of people who are not allowed to have driver's license.
Yeah, I can talk and attest to that because when I was younger, when I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go get my driver's license," my parents would be like, "I'm surprised you haven't gone for it already. You drive so many damn cars. Like, we assumed you had your license by 12."
Yeah.
But when I got my license, I was the youngest person in that classroom. So in at least when we did it here,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if the laws have changed, but if you wanted to get your learner's permit early, you had to take a driver's ed course. So
Mhm.
I was the youngest person in the driver's. I was like, I just turned 16. And I think you had to be like 16 to 16 and a half to take the class. And then at 16 and a half, you can apply for your permit. So that's what I did. So like I did it as soon as possible, man. Like
In Toronto, it's like as soon as you turn 16, you can get your G1. And then if you go to driving school 8 months later, you can get your G2. But if you don't go to driving school, you got to wait a year.
yeah. So it's similar. It's similar to here. So that's pretty much like the same way, except we don't like do like, I think it's like class D is like a regular driver's license.
Yeah, it's just here. It's just learner's permit and then your full license. Nothing in
Same.
the middle.
And I actually in my actual wallet, I have all of my licenses, just as like a reminder of like
I don't have. They took my.
I keep them for the photos because the photos are amazing.
I don't
Like
have my Ontario license anymore. They took it
I
away from me when I had to get a mass license.
I never got an Ontario license because my car is registered in Massachusetts. So I honestly I looked up the laws on that, and essentially all I had to do was just cross the border like every 6 weeks. So I'd take one of my friends, TK David, hey, do
Yeah.
you want to go to Falls View Casino? And we just gotta step over across the border a little bit, maybe get some food in
Mhm.
Buffalo, and then come back.
Come
That's all I
back.
did.
Yeah.
That's literally all I had to do. So I'd essentially be like a tourist again for
Yeah.
the extended the longest amount of time a Taurus can have a non-provincial registered car. So I kind of like figured that out, which isn't the best thing to do. Like I got really lucky in Toronto. No one hit my car. I didn't get into any accidents.
Well, I'll tell you this, that I don't know if it's
That car never broke down too. Like shit, that car never broke down in Canada once. Not once did it break. I can't believe that. That's actually crazy.
That's a sign.
like
it's a
bro,
sign.
like honestly, man, like I'll be honest, like, you know, I didn't want to talk about like the accident and stuff like that because it still kind of pisses me off, because that's like, again, like that's when like it got bad. Like that's when like, but the reason why I did that was it, like history repeats itself. When I sold my 99 M3, they were going up in price. So I sold it for a profit. When I stuffed the 04, I started looking for another 04 just to compare the market. And I was like, oh shit, these are expensive now. Oh shit, everyone's on this. It's like I couldn't replace it. So it was like I couldn't find another one for like 10. I couldn't find another one for like 10 grand and replace it. It just wasn't worth it. Like the 10 grand was better invested in my own car. So that's what I did. But you know, it's crazy. It's like that car never broke down once, dude. Like it's a BMW. It breaks down every damn year now. But
so what's next for you? With is it a little bit more cars? You're gonna shift gears a little bit.
I see what you did there.
Oh shit! No,
yeah, you did that. You did that. You did it.
Honestly, I am sorry for the pun, man. I didn't even realize that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So just so that everyone is aware, me and Richard used to literally almost argue on like where to go for like, hey, like where are we gonna get dinner? Or, like where are we gonna go hang out? And it'd be like a Friday night or a Saturday night, and it'd just be, you know, MF Doom is playing on my MF Doom
R.I.P.
TV.
man.
Yo,
R.I.P.
oh, I'm not happy
Doom.
about that. Rip, dude.
R.I.P. Doom.
Rip. But we'd be listening to MF Doom, potholders, one beer, you know, some good music,
Doomsday.
and cruising. Doomsday, what a great song. Just cruising around like Little Italy, Kensington Market.
Those are some fun times. Like, and like I said, like that's one of the craziest parts of like owning a car is that, and maybe it's because we were younger that we were doing that. Like, I don't like now when I look at a car, it's like I see it as a thing that I can go do errands with.
Yeah. It's like,
I'm like,
is this car going to be like I actually have a story about this. So it's like what you just said, it actually resonates to like my conversations that I have with like my car friends from a day-to-day perspective. So I have a friend of mine who has an S2000 and he daily drove that for 7 years. Although he was, you know, single and he was living at home, he didn't need the space, and he'd always borrow a car if he needed like things moved. Now he has a girlfriend. He's moved in with her. They've been living together for 2 years. He's coming out of like an SUV lease, and he wants another daily driver. So we're like, okay, what are you going to get? And he goes, I think I'm going to get a Miata. And we're just looking at him, we're like, you have an S2000 already. Why the hell would you daily drive a Miata? He's like, no, check this out. This is how I know he's a crazy person. He goes, I did it for 7 years. What's another couple more? It's no different. I'm like, bro, like you can't fit shit in a Miata, dude. Like, are you serious? Like, no.
Yeah, it's different because I remember those days, and I think everybody has that memory of when you were younger and you would just get into your car with your friends and just drive around and do nonsense. Right? You would.
I still do that. I still
16, 17, 18 years old, you call up your friends, hey, let's go do this. And now you're just driving around the city doing random things. Like now when I think about a car, I think about like
Costco trips.
Yeah, I'm thinking about I'm going to Costco. I think about I'm going to Home Depot. You know, I'm going here, I'm going there. I'm going to go pick something up, drop something off. That kind of stuff. I don't think about a car as like, oh yeah, let me call up my friends and like let's just drive around and like do stuff.
I mean, I think that's also partially like where we're at, like not like age wise, but like so it's also like where we're at, like location wise, like regionally speaking. Like here's the problem. It's like, you know, and you know this. It's like, you know, living on the East Coast, you know, cars, especially like fun cars that are like summer cars, quote unquote summer cars, they're a luxury item, there's not something that like, everyone can afford. And it's definitely, blessed to
You
be
got to
in the
have somewhere to
position.
put it too.
You have to have somewhere to put it. You have to be able to, first of all, if if I lived in California and I drove the M3 year round, I would be broke. I would be so broke because I'd constantly be modding it, breaking it, modding it, breaking it, and it'd just be a never-ending vicious cycle. So, and that's what I noticed from like all of like my friends out in California. Like that's kind of how it is.
Hmm.
But they have multiple cars that they can kind of extend that to, and that's when I had the genius light bulb idea when I first moved back to Boston. I was like, I can't drive this in the winter. No way. Why would I do that? I'm just going to buy another car. That became the next big issue is now I have like 6 cars.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a problem. It's a lot of money tied up in inanimate objects. It's a lot of projects to kind of like work out like mentally and also physically. And it's I'm not going to say they're like children, but it's definitely like different motors to
Something
feed.
that something that you have to monitor and take care of.
Yeah. So it's like it's
And
tough. It's like and like I'm kind of at the point where you are, what you just said. It's like, I'm looking at cars as like a utilitarian utilitarian purpose. I was joking with somebody the other day. I was like, I have a dog for the I have a dog. I have a car for the dog. I have a car for if it's just me on the highway or just commuting to work. I have a car for like back roads, twisty stuff. That's the M3. And then I have my project car, which is going to be kind of like a track car slash like maybe like barely a street car. So kind of like the M3, but a little bit more aggressive, like no carpet and stuff like that. So it's like I've got essentially a car for every situation.
mhm.
It's not that wasn't planned. That wasn't something that I woke up one day and was like, you know what? I'm gonna have like the Rolodex of vehicles, and they're all gonna be like stackable and like Ziploc like container like you know what I mean, like Tupperware container like
Yeah.
stackable. Each one has its
But
own purpose.
you know what I do like about, and this is the thing, is like you have your cars for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I Your Facebook and your Instagram is not you showing off all the cars that you have, saying, "Look at me and look what I own."
Yeah, no, it's none of that.
Right? I don't ever see you talk too much. Only time I hear you talk about your cars is when you're like upset about them,
Which is often, which is
which is
often.
which is often.
Which is often so like my thing, like again, that's the thing, but it's like it varies by the person, right? So like
Yeah,
some people love to talk about the cars, like this is what I did today, and it's like, oh, like these are my plans for the car and all this kind of stuff. I'm
yeah.
like,
Well, look how many I own, or look how
yeah,
many.
it's like
Yeah,
people like, I mean, that's kind of like the
look how
culture,
expensive this one
but
is.
like that's the culture we're in. It's not just cars, it's knives,
That's
like
everything. Yeah,
watches, hats, clothing, whatever, like dogs, like it's everything, like animals, people, it's everything. So it's like that's why it's kind of like, like I have my cars for me, and that's why I kind of like built all of them to be kind of unique and individual.
yeah.
Um and that's a problem because the thing is it's expensive to do that, but it's also like it also now like essentially like my cars are like my Thanos gauntlet. Like literally they're my Infinity Stones. Like each one has its own purpose. Holy shit. That's so crazy. I come up with the craziest analogies. It's so nuts. But it's true because each one serves its own purpose and they all give me power. Or anger, which Thanos gets both. So, I think you're right. Like, it's tough to kind of be in the position of like I love cars and like I love modifying cars and I love like
Mhm.
talking about cars, but at the same time it's like I actually don't. I actually hate cars because I'm so into cars. I hate
Yeah,
myself because I'm into cars, and my wallet hates me every day. So it's
yeah.
like it's one of those things where it's kind of like a New Year's resolution for me to New Year's resolutions are always like be less fat, like eat better, like be more healthy, be nicer to people. No, mine is none of that. Mine is stop spending on cars,
Yeah.
start spending on yourself, start buying clothes, I mean, what I'm talking about with the whole like going to like TJ Maxx and looking at jeans and like
Mhm.
comparing like $20 here or $2,000 wheels. That has happened to me before. I've
Yeah.
literally been in that position where it's like, even in Canada, when it wasn't the $2,000 wheels, it was literally, do I want to eat or do I want to buy these parts, or does that oil change need to happen sooner? Because again, I was in that position. So I'm not just
Yeah.
talking about, people that are spending thousands on their cars and just being frugal. I'm talking about people that are also grinding to keep their cars.
Yeah.
And I was in that position too. I mean, obviously it wasn't in like a really rough position, so fortunate for that. But I also worked in Canada as well. So like, I've had a
For me right now, when
pretty
I
decent
think
job.
about like my car, like, well, I don't have a car right now.
Good.
Yeah, I don't have one right now.
Good. You don't need one.
I don't need one, but
You
I am.
don't.
I'm gonna get one.
Of course.
But,
Of
but when
course.
I
Everyone.
think about it, like I'm thinking about, you know, the price doesn't matter to me.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be brand new. It doesn't like it, I would honestly be happy driving a 15-year-old car if it's the right car.
Same. I'm actually doing it every day.
Yeah.
Other than the Audi, which is like it was relatively new. It's a 2014.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing. Like,
It's all about I always believe that if you're buying something not for you and how you are connected to it and how it makes you feel, then you're purchasing it for the wrong reasons. If you're buying a watch or a suit or a car or a piece of jewelry, whatever it is that you're
you're
buying,
gonna think about it. You're gonna think
yeah,
about it. It's
it
it's, it's a personal decision.
yeah, it's got to be a personal decision. It can't really be, I'm not going to buy this, $3,000 watch because I think that people are going to see me in a $3,000 watch and they're going to be
No.
like, oh, this guy. No, I'm going to buy a $3,000 watch because there's some sort of allure to it, something that I see in it that's going to attract me to this item, and I'm going to associate some sort of relationship with it, right?
Yeah, and it's like, that I worked for, BMW for years. So it's like it's one of those things where like we would always talk about it. It's like, owning like buying a car, whatever it is, like it could be a Honda, it could be a BMW, it could be a Rolls Royce, doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
it's a passion project. It's not like no one goes to a BMW dealership and says, I need a 7 Series. I cannot be in anything else. I need a 7 Series.
There's got to be at least one person.
There are people that have definitely done that. They're in 7 Series, but I'm just saying that like,
I want
it's
one. I want a 7 Series. I want
sevens are pretty cool. Sevens are
I want
pretty
a
cool.
the 7 4 like the
The hybrid one?
no the 98 740i.
Oh yeah. Those are nice. So
Those are
my
really cool.
one of my friends has 2 of them. So he's got a long wheelbase one, which
Hmm.
is like a limo essentially almost. It's like look, the back doors are a little bit longer, and he's got a regular 740. It's got a short wheelbase. They
Hmm.
both have M5 powertrains, and they both are manual transmission. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
like
but
those are some. I would love to own one of those cars because number one, I can find one for like 5 grand.
And then you can build it. So here's the thing, bro. Like that's what we're talking about. Like you just said, it's like you have no problem driving. It's not about the money. You have no problem driving a 15-year-old car. That's
Yeah.
why when people give me shit, like I was talking to this one person at work, and she was like, you have so much money tied into like all these cars. Why don't you just sell them and buy one brand new one? And it's like, no brand new car is really appealing enough to get rid of all of these infinity stones, if you know what I mean. So it's just not gonna work that way. So it's like, listen, like it's like it I get it. It makes sense. Like, like for me, that was always the easiest way for me to get more cars is to buy cheap and then fix up. I didn't have the budget to buy like a super clean, like low mileage car because all of the cars that I have, other people covet and have more money than me. So they could literally buy better examples, which is fine. But the ones that I actually have, I feel have a lot of character and a lot of culture. The M3, for example, is a one owner car. I bought off the original owner. His parents and his grandfather actually started the first Porsche dealership in Pittsburgh back when Pittsburgh was a steel town, when they had money. And they're still the only Porsche dealership in Pittsburgh. So I bought my car from literally the original owner. The reason why it was for sale and the reason why he took such a low ball offer is because he didn't have any room left in his garage to park it inside. And he was like, the car has been garage parked his entire life, and I feel bad leaving it outside now that winter's gonna, it might rain or something like that. And he's like, it's never even seen rain. And I was like, that's crazy. He's like, yeah. He's like, I've taken it to the track and definitely beat on it, but he's like, it's never seen rain. I'm like, that's actually nuts. So I bought it from the right person, someone like me, like-minded. Like he
Hmm.
obsessed about the car. He loved the car when he had it. He had it from 2004 to 2012.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and
the
even
dangerous. That's the most dangerous thing about being a car person is that you know that you can't buy a whole flock of brand new cars, but you
Yeah.
can take 20 grand and buy 4 cars.
So cars, the way I describe cars, like modifying cars to people that aren't into cars, is very simple. Lego, and Legos are expensive. That's how I do it. Like, that's
Yeah.
all you need to say, because everyone knows about Lego, and everyone knows Legos are damn expensive. Goddamn brick's
Yeah.
like $3 now. Like the little tiny brick is like $3, like singular pieces. It's nuts.
Well, yeah, it's just like anything.
It's a
Anything that you
puzzle. It's a
yeah,
puzzle. Cars are a
anything that you
puzzle.
buy, you could just accessorize. It's the same way that
Computers.
yeah, people are building, $20,000 computers for gaming.
All my friends are building rigs right now. Like, here's the thing. So, it's funny you mentioned that, because it's like, comparative to like other hobbies, like cars is pretty bad, but it's also like, it is and it isn't. Like
Mhm.
a computer, like you could say like, hey, like I need this computer for gaming, but I could also work on it. So like that's also like giving me income. Whereas you could say, hey, like I don't need to have an 800 horsepower Mustang, but it's also getting me to work every day, which is allowing me to have an 800 horsepower Mustang. So it's like, okay, like you have a point.
That is the worst. That is the worst rationale.
But no, that's how car people think. The people that obsess
Yeah.
about hobbies, that's how they make it rational for themselves.
Mhm.
Again, we're talking about crazy people. Like the people that spend, like, again, the person that spends $12,000 on a supercharger kit is not very different from the person that spends $1,200 on a brand new graphics card like every 3 months.
Yeah.
They're not very different. They're the same kind of person. They're always tweaking, looking for something, never truly finding it. Like
Yeah.
it's
I
sad.
saw a video of a guy online who spent all kinds of money building an 8K gaming device.
Rig.
Yeah. And I was just like, are there even 8K games? Like, is this possible?
Yeah, like dude's playing like, he's playing GoldenEye. Like,
Right.
wow, these individual squares are so crisp. This bazooka is not even round, it's a rectangle, but it fires real nice.
Yeah.
1
Anyway,
FPS per second.
we're getting up to that. We're right over that hour mark.
Gotcha.
And we thank everybody who came in and tuned in for listening. Shaw, is there anything that you want to kind of close out? Any closing remarks you want to bring in about the whole topic?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to keep it kind of brief, it's like, it might sound like I'm kind of like talking down on like car people or like anyone that's like passionate about their hobbies. It's not really the case. I'm just trying to kind of like open some people's eyes that like we're not a lot, people aren't so different from one another,
Yeah.
Human interaction and human kind of traits, they're pretty similar because humans pick up on other human stuff.
Mhm.
So just because you see that one person struggling to build a car doesn't mean that the person there could be a person standing right next to them that's struggling to build a computer. It's no different.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the thing. Like the guy, like if you're standing at the bus stop with your bus pass, and there's a guy in front of you driving like a very nice car, it doesn't mean that either one of those people are happy or unhappy.
yeah, doesn't mean
And it doesn't
any of
mean
that.
it doesn't mean if you take the person who is at the bus stop and put them into the car that they become that'll instantaneously make them happy. It doesn't mean that if you take the person that's in the car and put them at the bus stop,
You
vice
can't
versa,
you can't Freaky Friday them. It won't work.
it won't work.
You
Right.
can't work. I watched a movie with Jamie Lee Curtis. It don't work.
Right. So
Mhm.
the objects themselves are not, they don't create happiness, but
Inanimate objects too usually don't.
yeah.
Like video games and stuff like that. I mean, I'm telling you right now, like I know you like playing COD and stuff like that. I love playing
I love
zombies.
God. I
I
love God.
love COD. I like
I'm
I
about
like
to
COD.
play a little bit of COD right now before I go to bed.
I like COD for different reasons. I like COD because I love shit talking. So it's like
You can't do
it is
that anymore.
why not?
Because they made it so that if you're playing team deathmatch,
Yeah.
you can't talk to people in between games because it changes your entire lobby over.
Oh, so it's like
Yeah.
fresh people each time. Oh, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Oh,
they're
when you
getting
go
too
to
many
yeah.
bullying complaints and stuff like that from parents.
You can still talk to your own team though, right?
Yes, you can
Okay,
talk to
so
your
yeah.
own team, but you can't
Okay, so I should talk to my own friends. That's fine.
yeah, like you can't dominate a team and then go into the lobby afterward and talk a bunch
I
of trash.
miss that. I miss that about Modern
Yeah.
Warfare, like original Modern Warfare.
Yeah,
Oh
you
my
can't do that
God,
anymore. I miss
days.
that.
I miss getting chewed out by like a 12-year-old just amped
That's
up on
weird.
Mountain Dew. Literally, these kids were like, they would come up with some crazy stuff, like good material to use on other people and like make adults cry.
Yeah.
You know,
Kids are just so creative.
they are.
But yeah, thank you for coming out, man. I can't wait to have you out here again
No
and
worries.
talk about we have a bunch of stuff that we'll talk about. It's not just going to be car stuff.
No.
But I was glad you came through. Please hit that like button or subscribe. And if you have a comment or a question for my car enthusiast friend over here about your car or what he thinks about something, let me know. I'll pass it on to him, and then the next time he comes on the podcast, I'll have him answer them for you. Got a lot of car people who have questions.
All right, I'm here for them.
All right, perfect.
be your
Thank you for
car
coming
guru.
out, man.
Thanks
Until a later date.
Likewise, man.
All right,
Thank you.
later.